Canon, you finally did it. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Learning Curve Tech, where I learn tech with you. Now, if you haven't heard, Canon just released the EOS R5, or at least they're working on releasing it. It probably won't actually come out until summer, but so far what we know is that it's going to be a crazy camera. It's supposed to have 8K RAW, which might be practical, might not be. A lot of people are saying how much they think it's going to be terrible, and some people are like, it's going to be the best thing ever. So for me, I would really love to get the EOS R5, but it's really going to be a $3,500 something camera, which, you know, most people can't afford that, so a lot of people won't be able to get this camera. For me, I would get it if I had that much money, just because of the specs and the fact that it has 4K at 120 frames per second, which is the 4 times slow motion, which really would be great if you want to do some really cool cinematic B-rolls type stuff with the 4K that you can crop down and stabilize without having to use a gimbal. It's also supposed to have in-body image stabilization, so you won't really even need to use a gimbal that much with all the stabilization means you're gonna have. But with 8K, will anybody really be able to use 8K? It depends. You're gonna have to have a good memory card, and you're gonna have to have the correct hardware to shoot in 8K. I can imagine that most people are just going to stick to 4K, and really that's what most people are excited about, having the 4K 120. I don't think a whole lot of people are going to use the 8K, and I've heard that it's probably not even going to have an unlimited time, so you're only going to be able to record for like 15 minutes or something. So for me, I could still record in 8K, but I don't really have all the correct hardware to actually be able to edit 8K and view 8K. It's not practical for me. But one thing that you could do was really crop down the image, which would be really nice. And the fact that it's raw always helps too. It's supposed to have dual pixel CMOS autofocus. So the really good fast autofocus. It also will have dual card slots with the SD and I think it's called the CF, something like that, CFast. I don't use that card. I use SD. But for the 8K, I think you're gonna have to use the CF or CFast card, whatever they call it, which is it's more expensive and it's a faster card. One thing that I noticed when I looked at the specs was that it said 12 frames per second mechanical shutter and a 20 frames per second silent shutter. I don't really understand how practical the 20 frames per second silent shutter is going to be, since you'll have 8K at 30 frames. To me, I would think you could just take the 8K and just grab a frame out of it, and you would still have the 33 megapixels at 30 frames per second. So to me, 20 frames per second, I wouldn't use that too much. I'm pretty sure this camera is going to be more towards the video side rather than the pro photography and wildlife photography, action photography. I think it's going to be more suited towards video, but it will still be a good picture camera, good stills camera. Nowadays, most cameras can shoot good video and have good photos at the same time. Now, also in the works is a EOS R6. I don't know if this is going to happen. The EOS R6 could be like the mirrorless version of the 6D, if I'm understanding it correctly. Then they would have an EOS R7, and then maybe even a R5S or an RS, which would be the huge megapixel count camera. But with all these cameras in the works for Canon, they kind of hid another really important thing that they just came out with, which I really think they should have done a while ago. It would have really saved a lot of people a lot of money, and also it really would have helped stop motion animators. Canon just released the EOS Utility webcam software. And I'm so excited because finally, us as stop motion animators probably won't have to get really expensive software anymore. We might be able to use the free software, but we'll have to see how that works. I actually downloaded it and tried using the software, but it's in beta mode, so it's a little buggy right now. When you try to change settings, your camera shutter opens and closes for the live view mode. It just doesn't work really well right now, and it only gave me up to 720p, which really isn't that helpful because it's such a low resolution. But if the EOS webcam utility does have the compatibility with free stop motion softwares that in the past only allowed webcams, this could be so great for so many stop motion animators that really need to use a free software and don't have the money to spend on Dragon Frame or Stop Motion Pro, which you can check out a review for those three softwares up in the link above, and I'll link it down in the description as well. But overall, with all these cameras coming out and the EOS webcam utility, they're all still at the beginning stage, but I can't wait to see what comes out later, and I'm really excited for the webcam utility software to take off and for me to be able to use my camera instead of having to use a webcam will be so great because I could have the full DSLR quality and still be able to use my DSLR with Skype. The only thing about this software is that it could put a couple companies out of business. For example, the camera card companies, which will still have to make the cards for other camera brands. But now, since pretty much nobody's going to be needing the capture cards anymore to tell the computer that your camera is a webcam, I think some of those companies are going to be suffering a little bit just because of one software. Another thing that might suffer a little bit from this is the stop motion animation software companies. Dragon Frame and Stop Motion Pro, they might suffer a little bit from this, but they're still always the better softwares. So even if Canon does get the full webcam utility out for all their cameras, you will still want to use the pro softwares to get the pro features. I'm really excited for all this great stuff from Canon, and a lot of it I really think they should have done 5, 4, 3 something odd years ago. I'm also really excited to see how the EOS R5 comes out. I don't think it's going to be so terrible or so great as people are saying. I just think it's going to be a nice camera that I can afford. So we'll see how that works. So if you want to stay in the know about all the latest cameras, and you also want to get some good photography tips, tricks, and ideas, head down below, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and then check out one of these videos. And I'll see you next time on Learning Curve Tech.